faith, family, and everything else that matters to you from a godly point of view. Welcome to the Clear Branch Methodist Podcast.
Hey, welcome in. It is the Clear Branch Methodist Podcast. My name is Mark. I'm one of the associate pastors here at Clear Branch Methodist in Trussville, Alabama. Thanks for hanging out with us. And don't forget, subscribe and link and share the podcast with everybody. We're talking about different issues that affect our spiritual lives as well as our families. And a big part of that second part is sitting in the studio with me. It's Melanie Schuler. Melanie is our minister of family ministries and childhood spirituality and coaching,
I think my real title is Minister to Children and Families.
There you go. I
usually just say I'm in charge of the kids.
Well, I know what you do, but it's like we don't throw around those lofty titles here around the office. So
we don't.
But Mel, we've got a very busy time for kids. We're in the middle of it. I mean, because we had Trunk or Treat a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. How many was it? 1,100 people that came through?
Well, we have 1,109 registered, but we really think that our number was closer to probably 1,300. Because we don't get everybody as they come in. So, and then some families that are part of Trunks, they don't register. So we really, based on everything that happened, we think it was probably closer to 1,300.
Wow. 1,300 people there. Mm-hmm.
We went through 1,100 hot dogs by 7:30.
And the s'more station got cleaned out, right?
S'more station got cleaned out. 8 gallons of hot chocolate was gone. And wow. And we don't bring that out till it's dark. So that came out late and that was all done. So
I got to tell you real quick, we found out that my boys are weird when it comes to s'mores. I love s'mores. Well, s'mores are like one of my favorite desserts. And so Jack decided opened up at me right out of the gate. I don't want a s'more. I just want to toast a marshmallow.
I'm with Jack.
Well, the thing is, with Jack, when he says he wants to toast a marshmallow, he wants to hold a marshmallow on a stick somewhere in like a 2-mile radius of a fire. Mm-hmm. To where it's barely warm, and then he takes it and eats it. Yeah. He wants a lightly room temperature
He would probably
marshmallow.
Love a perfectly toasted marshmallow if someone did it for him. My guess is Jack grew disinterested in how long it took for the marshmallow to get toasted.
And then Marshall, we made him a whole s'more thing. He took 2 bites and no thank you, and just turned it away. But, You know Marshall, though. Yes. Marshall has a little defiant streak in him that he lets it get in his own way. So, like things he wants, but you want it too much.
Wait till next year. I'll be like, oh, Marshall, you don't want a s'more. You don't like s'mores. And he'll be like, oh, yes, I do.
I do that with him. Kids, man. But, it's part of raising them, and it's part of, you want to pull your hair out at times, but at the same time, you also want to scoop them up and hug them.
Take them everywhere with you.
Exactly. So one part of that is bringing them up in the church family as well. Mm-hmm. And you have a huge part in that. I mean, you're the reason that on the way to school sometimes my kids will say, hey, we want to listen to church music. And I'm pulling up worship music because they hear it, around our house, but they also hear it when they're here with you on Sundays. Mm-hmm. It's just a part of their lesson and a part of the children's worship time. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful for that because you are teaching them those basics of worship, which is so important, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's really fun to watch them find songs that they love. So, of course, as you know, Jack and I share a favorite song. I have 3 standard favorites, but yes, I will. It's top of that list. And that's Jack's favorite also. So we use that song for worship on Sunday. And so when I was walking past Jack, I patted him on his head. I was like, hey, it's your favorite, buddy. And he just grinned up at me. And so I love it when the kids have found a song that they love, or when they suggest a song that we can add, and then how much they love worshiping and how much they love watching the other kids learn to love those songs that they already love. So that's a really special thing.
Because praise is Marshall's favorite, Jack has started liking that one. And that's when that Marshall would just be walking through the house and he'll throw out, all he knows is like the very limited chorus. So I hear the chorus over and over again. But yeah, it's so cool. Like you feel like I'm parenting correctly because they're walking around not repeating something they've heard on a YouTube video or in a video game or something. It's something that's godly, and it's something that's Christ centered, and that's so important. Why is it something that you really push on, teaching kids how to worship?
Well, and I don't know that I'm really teaching them how to worship so much as it's more how to be comfortable with worship, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many different ways to worship. And I grew up in a traditional Methodist church. And so when a lot of times as a staff, we'll talk about visible worship, where you can see how someone is worshiping. Of course, in a traditional setting, that looks different than what you see at Clear Branch. And so even sometimes as a kid, when I would go to Sumatanga, and we did different kinds of songs, and it was a much different setting. At first, I wasn't always comfortable with singing visible worship, and I wasn't comfortable visibly worshiping myself because that was not something that I really saw. And so it's just different, and it takes a while to get comfortable with those things. And so I think it's what I really try to do is I try to find songs that are the kids enjoy, because that's the things that they're going to latch on to them. I try to just talk a little bit, not every time we hear a song, but I'll say, especially if I'm introducing a new one, I'll say, hey, guys, as we're learning this, I'd like for you to listen to the words a little bit and hear, why we're singing this. I've said several times Eli's favorite song is King of Kings, and so there's so many wonderful things there in that song. So when I introduced, I said, this is really a song where we are praising God for what he is, for all the things that he has done, for what we have seen take place in the Bible, because that song really, it takes almost everything in the Bible and pops it into this one little song. It covers so many different things. And so, I want them to realize that when they're singing that, they're first, saying what they believe, first of all, in song, and then they're also praising and worshiping God for all the good things that they've done. And I just remind them why that's important, because you might think as a kid, well, does God really need me to tell him that I love him? Does God really need me to tell him that I appreciate any of these things? And I'm like, okay, if you gave your best friend a pencil before a test, and they turned around later, they said, thank you so much for doing that. I didn't realize I didn't have a pencil. I wouldn't have been able to take the test. I would have failed. Whatever things could have happened. Like, that may seem like a very small thing, a trivial thing. Yeah. But to a kid, that might be a really big deal. And so, but if you turn around and say to them, I really do appreciate that. Like, that may not have seemed like a big deal to you. How does that make you feel? Yeah. And they always are like, oh, yeah, I love it when someone thanks me, or they tell me I've done a good job, or they, compliment me on something. I said, so why would God be any different than that? He made us in his image. Yeah. He did all of this because he loves us, but do you not think that he still wants to hear that praise? And so I just remind them, whether it's for whatever reason, like we've been talking a lot about that this month, we're learning about generosity, which in turn comes back around to gratitude, really, which is both are great things to talk about in November as we're moving up towards Thanksgiving. But to remember that we need to thank God for all of these things. Yeah. Every wonderful thing that happens in our life is a gift from God, whether that's your family, which is a huge thing to be thankful for, or whether it's, for me, I always use this example because I think it's funny. I said almost every day as I'm doing my little prayer journal, I tell God I'm thankful for the cup of coffee that I know I'm going to have later that morning. Because to me, coffee is not so much about caffeine. It's just, it feels good. It's like a big hug on your insides. Like, I love that. It's more of the feeling of it than the other. But
usually that means you should go to the hospital.
Okay, so I'll keep that in mind next time. But, that we should, but with the point being that we need to return those thanks. And a huge way of doing that is through worship. Yes, we do that through prayer. Yes, we should thank God through other people by thanking our parents when they do something for us, or our friends, or being grateful. But in that we should tell people the things that God has done in our lives, the ways He's made a difference for us, but we should also tell that to Him. And so a lot of times worship is a really good way to do that. And so we do a lot of repetitive songs in the backyard because they learn them and they love them. If you think about when you were a kid, you probably watched some things over and over and over. My husband still watches some same movies over and over and over. That's
it's a guy
comforting
thing. We
to
do
him.
that all the time.
Yeah, it does tend to be more, I think, guys.
Tombstone. That's me.
Yeah, there you go.
Over and over.
But hearing these songs over and over, as they become more and more comfortable with it, then they can think about what they're singing that much better.
Eventually, the lyrics kind of weasel their way into the brain, and you get comprehension there.
Yes. So that's where we're hoping that we're heading. And then, when we have our children's service in the backyard, like you're very well aware because both your boys are in there.
Oh yeah.
And it's primarily the backyard is kindergarten through 5th grade, but we do.
It's not an actual backyard.
Not an actual backyard for anybody who hasn't been here before. I'll explain it to you another time. But what we do in there is like it's like a mini capsule, I guess, of, and I hate to use the term big church because it makes me sound like that, like cliched children's director, but we do tend to call it big church. It is a much larger room, so that makes sense. What we do is like a little snapshot of big church. So I try to make it as similar to the main service happening in the other building on a child-friendly level as I can, because a lot of these kids, especially if they grew up in our church, while it's wonderful that we have a children's service, and I'm very thankful that we do and that I get to be a part of that, they're going to graduate out of the backyard in a few years. And some of them don't know how to, I shouldn't say they don't know how to act, but they don't know quite how to deal with this service on such a large level. But it's hugely important that they do that because they need to be able to see other people worshiping as well. They've been in the backyard, if they've come through our church even for a year or so, they've been in the backyard and they've been with other kids and seen worship there, but that can suddenly feel very intimidating when you go to this much larger space and there's so many grown-ups. And it's just different. Now, we have a relaxed service.
We do.
But sometimes when parents haven't taken kids to a service, it's also uncomfortable for them. Mm-hmm. So I try to keep it similar so that when they start getting ready to move in and be in that service, they're a little more comfortable because it is so important that they need to be able to see our live band and how they worship, because it's beautiful to watch.
Mm-hmm. And they also need to see their parents worship.
Yes, exactly.
They need to see that parental example of this is how mom and dad worship. It's not just something that we do in the backyard. It's something that we all do as believers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's why that's one thing that we've started doing, that you guys have started doing, is once a quarter we pull the kids into the quote big church with their parents.
We've started
and
doing
I love
that
we
more.
do that.
Yes. So this year, I think it's been about once a quarter so far this year. We may try to do that a little bit more next year, where our backyard age kids, our kindergarten through 5th graders, are in the service, and they've got like their own worship notes, and they're encouraged to kind of keep up with what's going on in the service with that. But they're also there sitting with their parents, singing the songs that their parents enjoy, seeing how they worship. Even though, like, if you think about when you were a kid, if you grew up in church, maybe you were in a traditional service. But to me, there was something, even when I was a child, that was so special about standing next to my grandmother as we were singing a hymn. And I loved knowing what hymn was her favorite or what hymn was my mom's favorite. My mom was not a soloist by any means, but she did know how to read music, sort of, and from choir, I think, in high school or something. And she sang alto. And so I learned I love harmonies. I'm a harmony girl myself, but I first learned that standing next to my mom in church. And even before I took piano lessons, kind of learning how, how that worked. And just all of those things really make you feel a part of that greater church family. And it also is kind of then gives the kids permission. If they see their parents worshiping, if they see Micah, if they see, we have several of our kids whose parents are in the praise band at different times. And so seeing Blakely's mom sing, or seeing Blakely's dad with his light up drumsticks. That's a very cool thing. And it really changes. Then they may not realize it, of course, because they're kids, but that sort of changes and gives them the freedom to worship in a way that they're comfortable doing.
Absolutely. And it actually, for folks that haven't been to Clear Branch, Clear Branch is a contemporary only church, meaning we don't have a traditional service at all. And when we first started out 20 years ago,
I can never remember exactly either.
But when we first started out, that it was an oddity. Yeah. And now it's more common to have a contemporary service. Most churches do in some form or fashion. But growing up as you did in a traditional worship service, the kids always stayed with their parents and their families up until right before the sermon, because bunch of 3-4-year-olds and one guy talking for 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's
a recipe for disaster. So the children's message would happen, then everybody would go off to children's church, which I understand why, because you're keeping the kids for the action-packed part of the service, and then taking them out for what they would consider the boring part. Sorry to all of my pastor brethren.
Remember when you were 6?
Exactly. I say for 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds. But I love that we do it the way we do it here, because it allows you to create this entire hour of programming that leads, it ramps up into that, and you're able to do a more complete lesson and more complete. You're not just trying to shoehorn and kill time through a sermon. You're actually a deliberate programmer for this, and it allows more of a fleshed out experience for the kids, and I love that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to do, really. I mean, I didn't know how that was all going to play out when I first started this job 8 years ago. It's been very much a work in progress over time, but it's a really special thing to get to be a part of. And like I said, we're very relaxed. We do. Yeah. A lot of times the kids are so used to me talking, like I don't just talk to them. I try to ask a lot of questions. I try to make it as interactive as possible. And sometimes I have to be like, okay, and now y'all are going to have to not talk for a few minutes because they can get too comfortable. And it's like there's so many hands going up and people saying things that I'm like, I can't even finish a sentence. Okay, everybody just stop and I'll let you know when the interactive portion begins again. But at the same time, how wonderful that they feel that comfortable.
Sure.
And that's how I want them to feel. And we also have guests that come in. So we have right now I have
Miss Carol
Carol Gargis, who teaches every fourth Sunday, and like when she teaches, they all know, like they walk in and they see Carol and they know that today we get candy, because Carol has them sit on the floor and she gets them as close as she can to him, and she asks questions all the way through and is throwing candy at them. And again, that's such a wonderful way to help them to remember things, and also to help them get to know someone else that they don't always see as a part of children's ministry. So,
yeah, and it, Carol's not above bribery.
No,
which as a parent, neither am I.
I like to call it rewarded behavior.
It's positive reinforcement.
Yeah, positive reinforcement. That was actually the phrase I was looking for, and I couldn't make the right one come out of my brain. But I'm not above positive reinforcement at all.
And I can tell you that even through that relaxed atmosphere, so many lessons are landing. That because we'll get in the car and because with kids, especially little boys, you ask them what you learned. What'd you learn in church? I don't know. But I say that because you put them on the spot. Right. I will tell you that later on that day, I will overhear Jack telling Marshall or telling us about like a Bible story, and I know where he heard it. I know that. It's because you and I, we get together, we record children's stuff for the online stuff. Yep. So I know what your lesson's going to be this day, buddy.
Yeah, you get the preview every week, don't you?
So I know you're talking about Zacchaeus. I know you're talking about, Moses. I know what I mean. So when he comes back and he starts telling me the story, I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
So, and I always come to tell you, because I know it can be frustrating sometimes when you're just yelling at what you feel like is a brick wall, but some of it's sneaking through.
It is, and it is really fun to see as they start learning. And I love when, like, I'll pull out. I use the Jesus Storybook Bible a lot, more on Wednesday nights and with our 4K kids on chapel Wednesday mornings than on Sunday mornings, but we use it a good bit. The kids recognize that book, and I love when kids say, "Oh, I know that book. I have that book at home." Or, they'll say, "Oh, there's, I was reading about this on the app on my Bible." There's several different apps, I think,
there's
out there.
There's a fantastic Bible app that Jack actually, that's how he learned a lot of his, just the base level stories, was because he had it on his iPad.
Yeah. So it's really cool to watch that happen. We've been saying on Wednesday nights, this is kind of off topic, but on Wednesday nights this semester and throughout the course of this year, we've been learning about people of the Bible. And so not every single person, because that would take way too long, but all the main people that you hear about and some more minor characters, and talking about they're going in order that they're in the Bible and talking about the things that that God used them for, worked through them, and then some interesting facts about them. And so they've really finally started to learn all that. And at the end of every week, we'll do sort of a game show-esque way where I ask questions, and if they get the answer right, they get a point. And then we'll go back all the way back through from where we've learned. And we said we're going to challenge the students in Are You Smarter Than a Backyard Kid? See if we, like maybe before Christmas break, and see if we can challenge them and who's going to know more about these Old Testament characters. Is it going to be your students who are in junior high and high school, or is it going to be our K through 5th grade kids? My money's on the K through 5th grade kids right now. I'm just saying, although most of those kids came through my children's department, so they should know that. But
this is going to make your brain melt.
It is.
Because you'll be like, 2 years ago, we talked about this when you were in the kids program.
Something happens to a junior high kid. Their brain chemistry is just, they come back to themselves later. And I think they remember the things, but their brains don't function right.
All those hormones clouding up everything.
It's a problem.
Yeah, golly.
But that's a lot of fun too. And seeing the things seeing them remember some of these fun details, but
So Mel, let me ask you this. What does a win look like for you? What success for within children's ministry? What does a win look like?
Well, I think it looks like different things. When a child asks if they can pray for the group, I think that's a really big one. Mm-hmm. If you've ever heard me pray, it doesn't really matter if I'm with children or if I'm with adults. It all pretty much sounds the same. And I started praying this way as I was trying to encourage my children to be comfortable praying out loud. And so I started praying at home in a very simple, plain way, in a very practical. Every time I pray out loud, I ask for God to give us a good night's rest so that we can wake up tomorrow and be ready to go out into the world, because that's what we need. That's a pretty simple, it may seem simple, but do you need that? Because I do.
Yeah, that's not something that stops with kids.
So I try to encourage them to remind them that when they pray, it doesn't have to be fancy. God doesn't need fancy words. He just wants you to talk to him, just like your mom and dad want you to talk to him, just like your best friend wants you to talk to them. Mm-hmm. So when I have a child who then is comfortable praying in front of the group, that's a huge deal. That makes me feel great, because I hope that I've helped influence that in some way. A lot of times when we're finishing up in the backyard and I pray at the end of a lesson, sometimes the kids will come, they'll get up out of their seats and they'll come and like hold my hand as I pray, or they'll put their arm around me or something. And I think that's wonderful too, because while, yes, I've asked you to sit, maybe they just are ready to get up. I don't know. But the fact that they come and stand with me, I think shows that while they may not understand it, they want to be a part of those words that are to God. Yeah. And so that feels like a win. It doesn't happen every single time, but it happens very, very often on Sunday mornings, and I love that. And when I can see kids finally starting to not just hear the stories, but understand what that means for them. Pretty much anytime I teach a Bible lesson, no matter who it's about, I always try to bring it back to, what does that mean for you? So if we're learning that, Noah built this boat, God asked him to build this boat because he was going to flood the world because he needed to start over. That was a huge thing that Noah did, but
why?
We're not going to have to build a boat, right? But we need to trust that God has a reason for anything that he leads us to do, just like Noah trusted. Mm-hmm. He had to have been embarrassed, but he still did what God asked him to do. So if Noah could go through all of that embarrassment and all that work just to do what God asked him to do, we can do that too. Mm-hmm. And it may just be that God's asking us to spend more time with him, to check on our friends that we haven't heard from lately, or spend extra time with our grandparents. There's just because it may seem like a small thing doesn't mean it's any less important. Oh, yeah. So we try to always bring it back to that. So those are harder concepts for kids to understand.
They are, but they're so important. And I mean, I know adults that have a hard time with seeing past the actual words and finding the meaning there. And so, I mean, I know that that's something that the fact that you're doing this at an early age allows for a deeper understanding later in life.
Yeah. And you just have to kids aren't going to, even adults, we don't learn something, we don't take it deep down in us the first time we hear it. I mean, nobody does. And so you say it over and over and over again. You teach it over and over and over again and stay consistent in that. And eventually it either just becomes part of their DNA and they don't ever remember not knowing or understanding it, or they have a light bulb moment one day and they're like, oh, I get it now. My grandmother used to say, you only tell people good things about yourself. And if you say it often enough, they'll start to believe it. And so when I do weird things, I say, oh, well, it's just part of my charm because I'm trying to convince you all that I'm charming. I hope it's working. I've been doing it for 35 years now, I think. So, but it's the same thing with anything. You just, you say it, you live it over and over and over. And eventually they're going to come to understand it and to know it and to remember that. So,
Mel, thank you for everything you do with our kids, our children. Thanks for
letting me.
I mean,
so it's a wonderful honor to have this role.
Man, so Christmas is coming up. We've got some big things happening.
Yes, we
do. And I don't want to treat Thanksgiving like it's the gate to get to it, but in today's society, I mean, I have resisted it, decorating for Christmas in my house for the last week. So we get past Thanksgiving, we start the Advent season, and we've got some big family-based things happening.
We do. So the first big family-based thing will be what we call our backyard Christmas kickoff. Now, this is really for all Clear Branch kids. We just usually have it in the backyard, so yeah. It's cute. We call it that. Yeah. But it's a 5:30 to 8 o'clock event. So the registration is open for that. You'll see that on social media probably late. You'll see that on social media by the time that this podcast is out. It'll be there. So go look. Clear Branch Kids. And so that is an event where it's really just a fun event for the kids, but it's also a time when you parents can go, you can drop them off with me and Miss Addie and some friends, and you guys can go pick up some Christmas gifts that you need to get done. You can go just have a dinner with somebody that you need to without, I mean, we love our children, but they talk a lot, right?
Sure.
So you can just go have a quiet dinner and then come back and pick them up. But that night we have a little Christmas party snacks and we do some Christmas party activities and crafts. And then we get to go see Santa and Mrs. Claus. And that is pretty awesome. And while
it's amazing that we keep getting Santa Claus. We keep booking Santa Claus every year.
I just figured Clear Branch must be doing something right.
That's a huge get.
It is.
Because he's busy.
He is. And not just Santa, but also Mrs. Claus. And they are always so happy to be here. It's amazing to me.
Wow.
And while we can debate about Santa if you want to, but guess what Santa does? Is Santa and Mrs. Claus read a story to our kids that tells them about the true meaning of Christmas. And so it's called The True Night Before Christmas. And if you need help finding it, if you want this for your kids, try eBay. It's no longer in print, but you can still get copies of it if you're good little boys and girls. Because I ordered a couple of extras last year, but eBay is pretty much the only way you can get it. But it's a great book, and it's hand illustrated by this the guy who wrote it. He wrote it when his first grandchild was born, and then later he'd always read it then every year, and then later when his granddaughter, that first grandchild, got old enough, she did all the illustrations for the book.
Oh wow!
So it's a very, very sweet book.
Yeah.
And really talks about why we really celebrate Christmas. And so I think it's a very cool thing to have Santa and the Mrs. talking to the kids about the true meaning and about why they're even relevant. You know, they're relevant because we celebrate this other thing. So that's a really fun thing. We'll take pictures with Santa and Mrs. Claus.
Yeah.
Last year we got to have a Q&A. That's pretty cool. So kids, you'd be amazed the questions that your kids have for them.
The reindeer eat?
Then the week after, that's the first Wednesday in December. The following week, we have Very Merry Family Movie Night, and that is for.
I don't think I've ever heard that event's name the same in the almost 7 years I've been here.
So I actually did say it right that time. I've said it wrong a bunch of times, but
I've heard Very Merry Movie Night. I've heard Merry Family Movie Night.
It's Very Merry Family Movie Night, and I didn't name it that, but
it works.
I felt like we had to keep it. And every year when I have to say it, I wish that I had done that differently. But that's an event for families, all age families. Like we're gonna obviously watch
parents, grandparents. Come on, let's
everybody, couples, singles. Come in your small group. Come with your bestie. Like we're gonna. The last few years we've had a chili dog bar for dinner. I don't know what we're having this year, but sometimes a chili dog just hits the spot.
Oh yeah.
So
totally.
So we do that, and then we will start.
Popcorn this year? Popcorn?
Really? As if we're not going to have popcorn.
And cupcakes?
Cupcakes. And we will also have a hot chocolate bar.
Hot chocolate. Oh, all the marshmallows.
So we'll have dinner, then
All
we'll
of
have
them.
cupcakes, and then you can load up your basket with your cupcake if you want to for the movie, and your popcorn and your hot chocolate with all the whipped cream and crushed peppermints and sprinkles and all the things that you want. And it's a great night. So it's both of these events are free. These are just
and we sit together and we watch a movie.
And we sit together and we watch a Christmas movie. Like
a family friendly Christmas movie.
And you can bring your kids in their pajamas if you want to. Yeah. I mean, that's fine.
Despite all my efforts, we're not watching Die Hard.
No, we're not watching Die Hard. I don't know that one is maybe the most conducive to all ages of family at Christmas time at the church, but
agree to disagree. Anyway, but that's a fantastic. And then we've got we have Christmas Eve coming up, right? Am I skipping past something?
No.
Very Merry Family Movie Night.
Oh, we didn't talk about the family brunch.
Oh, the family
That's a Sunday.
brunch.
So I guess I forgot about it.
More food that I forgot.
Yeah. So is it the 8th or the 10th?
I believe it's the 10th.
I think it's
whatever the Sunday in that area is.
The second Sunday in December. You can look at your calendar.
Mm-hmm. Right after worship.
After worship. So we're gonna have a big potluck brunch, and so everybody bring your favorite brunchish food to share.
Yeah.
And we're going to drop those off in the cafe before the service. That will be a family service, so we will have our backyard kids in the service. I'll be doing a children's minute, so I know how you guys love those. Be ready for that, and maybe I'll throw goldfish out to the crowd. I don't know. Who knows?
That went over like gangbusters last time.
Yeah, it's been a while. I need to bring maybe I can find some Christmas goldfish to give everybody. But
some adults got way more excited than they really should have. Like they forgot for a second they can go to the store and buy them.
Yeah, it's all right though. It's okay. I understand. So that day will be a great day. After the service, then you can go back and pick up your Little Sprouts or up to 4K kids from the White Building and bring them back over, and everybody's just going to have brunch together.
Yeah.
What a great Sunday. I can't wait.
It sounds fantastic.
I will say I'm nervous about what I'm going to bring because potlucks make me nervous. I feel like I'm not a good enough cook to appropriately
There's going to be so many casseroles, and if anybody's wondering what Pastor Mark likes, I love sausage balls.
Oh, I make a great sausage
Christmas
ball.
time, sausage balls.
My sausage balls are top tier. I will say that.
At a previous church that I worked at, I and a couple of other staff members actually decided which of the Christmas parties we were going to by the presence of sausage balls.
Have you ever had them made with cream cheese?
I don't know. I don't think so.
It's the key.
I've
That's
had them
how I
made
make
with.
mine.
I've had them made with a little bit of Bisquick in there.
So you still use Bisquick, but cream cheese in there. They're not dry at all. Oh, so good.
Like getting them, dipping them in a little bit of mustard.
Now I'm gonna have to make sausage balls so that I can put my money where my mouth
Yes,
is.
you should
telling
do
you,
that.
My sausage. I may not be a great cook, but the few things I know how to do, I'm really good at.
You're welcome, everyone else. I made that happen. Dance,
We'll see.
puppet dance.
I'm gonna need all day on the 9th free to do this because I'm also a slow cook.
So we got that, and then we moved to Christmas Eve
yes.
worship. Families all together that night for worship. We've got, we're very aware that the kids are in the service, so we kind of keep that in mind when that service is being planned. We've got, we do the candlelight worship at the very end of the service, and all the kids get little battery powered. I love that.
Yeah, they're really cute.
Little battery powered candles.
So you don't have to worry about your kids burning the church
Yeah,
down.
because kids in open flames and wax now.
Now, you may have to worry about your husband burning the church down. Or, guys, you may have to worry about your wife burning. I don't know. Every house is different.
I've met your husband, and yes, that's fair. But, yeah, but the kids are in the clear. Yeah.
The kids are in the clear. They've got battery-operated candles. And we talked about, this is like not rewarding good behavior, but it's pre-rewarding good behavior. I always have little, what we call busy boards ready for the kids. Yeah. And we usually have some extra special things in there for Christmas.
Aww.
Some little Christmas squishies maybe, and a candy cane. And so they've got, something that you can reward them with. And they've got some crayons and things that they can do to help them because it's harder to sit still on Christmas Eve than it is on any other day or night of the year.
It's not just sitting there like through a sermon and through like maybe some of the not singing parts of a worship service, but it's also Christmas Eve, and you're wiggly anyway.
And if you've never been to one of our Christmas Eve services, like nobody asked me to say this, but I would tell anybody that it came up. We have the most amazing Christmas Eve services, and I don't mean amazing in that they're over the top or this huge production.
No,
they're just. You're with your whole family. And I didn't grow up in this church. I don't have blood relatives that come to this church. Sometimes, my dad came last year, and hopefully he'll be with us again this year. And that's very, growing up in a church with all my family, I miss that. But we have an amazing church family, and you really feel it on some of these services like this. And I don't know how we have such an amazing praise and worship band. That none of these people have gotten snatched up to go perform professionally, but
we have so many talented, just individual musicians that are part of it.
They're so talented, and then to see how they worship too, like it again. We were talking about visible worship. I mean, it's just
so good.
Come to Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
I'll stop talking about it.
Bring the whole family.
Bring the whole family. We can seat 1,500 people. I promise you we can find a seat for whoever it is.
Absolutely.
And if we need to, I'll sit in the floor.
And what better
I sit
way?
better in the floor anyway. So
what better way to recenter those kids on what the real reason for all this is? I'm trying not to say the bumper sticker phrase because it grates on my nerves. The sentiment does not.
Right.
Just the over-repeated phrase. But yeah, the actual reason that we do this, then by spending time in prayer and in worship on the 24th on Christmas Eve.
And yeah, it's just great. Just come on.
Such good stuff.
What time does it start? I said the wrong time.
It's 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, Christmas Eve.
I was afraid I was going to say the wrong time. So 5 o'clock, Christmas Eve.
Yeah, and it goes for
Come to Clear
about an
Branch.
hour. You'll be at Waffle House by 6:30.
Yeah.
Maybe just my family. That's our thing. We do Waffle House Christmas Eve.
We have frozen lasagna.
There you go.
So there
my
you go.
parents do spaghetti. So I mean, everyone has their thing. So yeah, come on. Lots of great stuff happening throughout Advent here at Clear Branch. Mel, thanks for being with us this week.
Thanks for having me. I'm sorry I talked so much.
Oh,
but
no,
I love
no.
these are some of my favorite subjects, so it's hard to not.
Give me passion and excitement any day.
All day long.
There you go. We'll catch you next week right here on the Clear Branch Methodist Podcast. Don't forget, go find us over on social media at our website at clearbranch.org. We're on YouTube as well with all kinds of special online content, including special children's messages. If you're looking for something for your kids to watch on YouTube, that is not a video game person playing a video game. My kids do that all the time. It kills me. I thought it was silly until I realized that we do that. Adults do that every Saturday in the fall with college football. So we do watch other people play games. Anyway, go
just
catch
different games.
Go catch all that on YouTube, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.